Okay, so we are going to talk about the discriminant. Okay. Quadratic equations have real or complex solutions. Highlight complex solutions, because I'm guessing a lot of us aren't quite sure what that means. Okay, and you're going to need to know, because I'm going to ask you on a test what a complex solution is. So complex means it's imaginary. Okay, there's that I in there. Complex means there's a real and imaginary part. Okay. You can determine the type and number of solutions by finding the discriminant. Discriminant. I'll make that bigger so you can see how to spell it. Okay, the discriminant is just the b squared minus 4ac. Okay. It's what's inside the radical in your quadratic formula. And again, that tells you, right, if it's a negative number inside that radical, your answer is going to have an imaginary part, right? It's going to be imaginary. Okay. So let's determine how we can tell. So if we have the discriminant, if the discriminant equals 0, let's just go over what that looks like. Okay, you don't have to write this down, but it means that you have 0 inside a radical. Okay, so they're saying if inside here is 0, what would happen? I would get -6 plus or minus, what's the square root of 0? 0 over 2. Then I'd have like -6 plus 0 over 2. And then -6 minus 0 over 2. -6 plus 0 is -6. -6 minus 0 is still just -6. And -6 divided by 2 is -3. And then that's also -3, right? So how many solutions do I actually have? Just one. So if b squared minus 4ac, if inside my radical, I have a 0, it equals 0, then I'm going to have 1 real root. Okay. Slash solution slash x-intercept. Okay, remember an x-intercept? Remember, that's all of our solutions are x-intercepts. Okay, so now we want to graph a parabola that has one x-intercept. Visualize in your head, think of what the parabola would look like if it only crossed the x-axis once. Can you see that in your head? What would it look like? Okay, it would mean that your vertex is on the x-axis. Okay, because if the vertex was anywhere else, it would cross the x-axis maybe twice. But if the vertex is on it, it will only cross it once. Could it face down? Yeah, I could still have the vertex on the x-axis and have the parabola face down. Okay. So those are two pictures that you can think about that what your quadratic would look like. Okay. It just means that when you graph it, the parabola's vertex would be on the x-axis. Okay, so now we want to determine what would happen if the b squared minus 4ac inside that radical, if it was less than 0. What numbers are less than 0? Negatives, okay, so put negative here. If our discriminant was negative, so that would look something like this. Again, you don't have to write this down. It'd be something like 5 plus or minus the square root of -7. Okay. If I have a negative inside of the radical, what does that mean? It's imaginary. So it actually would be 5 plus or minus I square root 7 all over 2. Okay. What's another word I just taught you for imaginary? Complex. Okay. So if inside my radical was a negative, it would have 2 complex solutions. Okay. Now again, let's think about this. What would the parabola look like? Okay. I want to think. If I have imaginary solutions, that means I have imaginary x-intercepts, right? Do I have any x-intercepts then if they're imaginary? No. Okay, if I have a complex solution, that means my graph will never cross the x-axis. Okay? Because that's the whole point of a parabola. When I solve a parabola, a quadratic, we're looking for those x-intercepts. And since our answer is complex or imaginary, that means my parabola is going to have a vertex above the x-axis and face up. Something like this. Will that parabola ever cross the x-axis? No. So I'm not going to have any real solutions. I'm going to have complex or imaginary solutions. Could it face down as well? Yeah. I would just have to have my parabola, the vertex be below the x-axis and face down. Does that make sense? We're good? Okay. So it's really kind of important that you know that if it's in a complex solution, it doesn't have any x-intercepts. Okay. Because I'm going to ask you that. I'm going to say, hey, if I get a complex solution, what does that mean? It means it doesn't have any x-intercepts. Okay, next one. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. Okay, what numbers are greater than 0? Positive numbers. Okay, so if inside the radical I have a positive number, how many solutions am I going to get? 2. I'm going to get 2 real roots / solutions / x-intercepts. Any questions over that? So my parabola will look something like this, where it crosses the x-axis twice. Or it will look like this. Any questions? Okay, so I'm going to give you a problem that looks like this in your homework and on a quiz. It says evaluate the discriminant, tell how many solutions and whether the solutions are real or imaginary or complex. So we're going to use our discriminant. b squared minus 4ac. Okay, Piper, what's the a value in this equation? 1. Remember, it's a number in front of the x squared. Dakota, what's the b value?
6.
Okay. That makes the 10 the c value. Then we plug it in just like we did for the quadratic formula, only we're just dealing with the discriminant, the part inside the radical. So it gives me 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. This gives me 36 minus 4 times 1 is 4 times 10 is 40. 36 minus 40. And what is 36 minus 40? Negative 4. So we look at negative 4. We take negative 4, we look up here. Which one does it fit into? Is it 0? Is it less than 0, a negative number? Or is it a positive number? Okay, it's negative, okay? So it's asking us how many solutions, and are they real or complex? So since it's a negative number, it falls in this category. So how many solutions do I have, class? 2. And are they real or complex? Complex. Okay. So what it wants me to tell you is that there's 2 complex solutions. Any questions over that? Okay. Okay, do the next 2 in your pairs. Okay, so we should be getting, for this, when we do our discriminant, you got 1. Okay. But again, you look back up here. Is 1 0, negative, or positive? It's a positive solution. So that means there's 2 real roots. Okay, it also means my parabola is going to cross the x-axis twice. On F, it means that we got 0. Okay, so we go back up here. Here's 0. 0 means I have 1 real solution, that my quadratic only crosses the x-axis once. So the vertex is on the x-axis. Okay, it's 1 real root. Any questions over that? You're all good?